Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal. I hope all is well and you're having a very good start to 2023. Why wouldn't you have a good start to 2023? Just have a look at the Premier League table. If you're feeling a bit down, if you've been a bit hungover since the big New Year celebrations, then remember, at the moment, just get out your phone, get out your newspaper, look at the Premier League table. Everything will feel all right again because Arsenal are 7 points clear, of course, in a massive game at the Emirates tomorrow, which I will be at. Looking forward to that one. Arsenal have the chance to go 10 points clear. A win will send them a whole 10 points clear at the top of the Premier League, ahead of Manchester City's trip to Chelsea this week, of course. So huge week coming up once again for Arsenal. Really difficult game against Newcastle, who of course are flying at the moment in the Premier League. And disappointing result maybe at the weekend, but still enjoying an absolutely fabulous season themselves. Haven't conceded a goal in the Premier League, I think, for about 7.5 hours as well. So it's going to be a big test. And I will be looking at that game shortly in this video. A few other things to talk about as well. But I've got to start with the big news, or the good news, certainly. Very expected news. I mean, it was going to obviously happen, but it has now happened. And Arsenal have triggered the contract extensions for Bukayo, Saka and William Saliba. Obviously, they had to do that because otherwise they would have lost both players for free in the at the end of the season, because they were coming up towards the end of their contracts. But Arsenal always had this option that had to be taken up by a certain date to extend those contracts until summer of 2024. They've done that now, which is good in a way because it certainly gives them more leeway. They just simply had to take up those options. They couldn't not. And but of course, you know, this is just a small little part in the whole contract stuff that's going on with those players at the moment, because what's needed to be done is them to sign new terms, long-term contracts. It's not just about triggering this option and that's it. Of course, at the moment they've just done that so they can give themselves a little bit of breathing space while negotiations continue over these new long-term contracts on fresh terms that both players are currently part of. Well, not players, but certainly the agents anyway. So yeah, so that's a development for Arsenal, one that they needed to take. And so in the last sort of couple of weeks or so, they've done that with Patino, they've done it with Saka, and they've done that with Saliba and Saka till 2024, and Patino is until 2025. But all three of those players' contract talks will now be going on over the next couple of months, you would think. Well, they're already going on at the moment, but hopefully Arsenal can come to a relatively swift resolution with all of them, because you just don't want it dragging on. It's already gone on longer than I think we all wanted. At the start of the season, it felt really close in terms of Saka's one. That hasn't happened. There's been no confirmation yet of that. So you just want that sorted. You don't want it hanging over the club, the player, as the season drags on. So hopefully Arsenal can get it done, but they have at least given them just a little bit of breathing space by triggering these contract extensions before the deadline was needed. Okay, who starts versus Newcastle? This is a big one, I think, and it feels to me like a really big game for a lot of reasons. Arsenal are coming into it full of confidence after what happened against Brighton, but they're also coming into it with that knowledge that they can go 10 points clear, and sometimes that can bring with it added pressure. And I'm just intrigued to see how Arsenal cope with this, because this is going to be a really difficult game. Newcastle are a good side, make no mistake about it. Eddie Howe deserves a huge amount of credits, because they've done a fair bit in the transfer market since they've come into all this money. Newcastle, they've obviously signed like Bruno, who's been good, Botman's been good. Haven't seen anything of Isaac yet because he's been injured, but I think he deserves so much credit, because he's still, you look at the core of that team at the moment, and it's still very similar to the team that struggled for so long, that looked awful defensively at times before he came in. And he's got a real tune out of these players. You look at what he's done to Joe Linton, for example, and players like that, and he's just got a real tune out of them. I think he deserves a lot of credit, and they're just so difficult to beat. I mean, they're brilliant. They've been brilliant for me in my fantasy team, because I've had Kieran Trippier in it all season, who's just been an absolute point machine. I've got Sven Botman in it now, and they're just, both of them, just getting me so many points at the moment, because they're just not conceding any goals. 7.5 hours it's been in the Premier League. That's what Arsenal are going to be up against, and it's going to be intriguing to see how they deal with that. And Newcastle will play on the counter, no doubt about it. They will play well on the counter. They will provide a big threat. We've seen them. I mean, they went to Leicester just a week ago and turned them over. It was 3-0 before half-time. And they just play some good football. They're full of confidence. Players like Almiron absolutely flying right now. So it's going to be a real test for Arsenal. I'm intrigued to see how they get on and how they perform. And if they can get that win, move 10 points clear, that'd be unbelievable. Even if it is just for a short space of time, to be sitting 10 points clear at the top of the Premier League in January, be an amazing thing, an amazing sight. So it's a big game. In terms of who starts, I just think I'd be very surprised if we see anything but the side that played against Brighton. I know they've played a lot of games since coming back, so it'll be Brighton. It'll be Boxing Day against West Ham, Brighton New Year's Eve, and then this one on Tuesday night. So it'll be about 3 games in 7 days. But I still think he's going to go with the same team. I don't think he's going to rotate. You've got Oxford coming up in the FA Cup next, and there's a big, and they don't play until the Monday night for that one. So I just think you go through this one unless anyone's really showing signs in training or with the data analysis that they're really in sort of red zone territory, something like that. I think he goes with the same team. I'd be very surprised. Maybe you'd look at Zinchenko. He's been out for so long. Can you play him twice in such a short period of time? Do you bring Tierney back in? That might be one that's under consideration for Mikel Arteta. But other than that, I think it's going to be Ramsdale, White, Saliba, Gabriel, and then either Tierney or Zinchenko. Then it'll be Partey, Xhaka, Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli, and Nketiah. You just don't make any changes to that team, do you? The way they're playing at the moment, the form they've been in, the goals that the forward line are scoring. Saliba, maybe there's an argument to give him a little bit of a rest because he's looked a bit rusty, but I think the only way Saliba gets back to his best is by playing more minutes. The reason he's rusty at the moment is because he's not played much, because he's been over at the World Cup where he just sat on the bench for the majority of the time with France. So you just need him playing minutes. So I think maybe left back is the one area there might be a change just out of necessity more than anything else because of Zinchenko's lack of game time. You don't want to risk anything, but personally, for me, I think it's going to be an unchanged team. But let me know what you guys think. Is there any changes you would make? Let me know, as always, in the comments below. One of the big things going into this game is the yellow card situation. Now, Bukayo Saka has 4 yellow cards, he's got 5 this season. One of them was in the Europa League. But he's got 4 yellow cards in the Premier League this season, which is mad when you consider the treatment that has been dished out to Bukayo Saka. The fact that he's got 4 yellow cards to his name is just absolutely crazy. But, you know, that he is walking that classic sort of stereotypical, bit cliche comment of the disciplinary tightrope. But he's only 1 booking away from a ban. And with Tottenham coming up, with Man United coming up, there is a very good argument to say that Saka should maybe just dangle his leg out a little bit late on in the game against Newcastle if he's still on the pitch, get a yellow card and miss the Oxford game, which he probably would miss anyway, get that suspension out of the way. I'm not saying he should do that, but there is certainly an argument that suggests he maybe should. And it's not just him. Saliba's in the same situation. You do not want to be going to White Hart Lane, or whatever their ground is called now, without Saka and without Saliba, and it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that sort of the final few minutes of that Newcastle game if neither of them have been booked. Because let's face it, I think Saka would probably be on the bench again. Well, I think both of them would probably be on the bench against Oxford in the FA Cup. And so you do wonder, would Mikel just have a little bit of a word? Obviously, publicly, I'm sure he'd say no, but it's got to be something that maybe has been discussed, because you do not want risk anything in terms of missing Tottenham or Manchester United later on in this month. And, you know, if he does manage to, both of those players manage to get through to the Tottenham game unscathed and play in that one and are still on 4 yellow cards, the nature of the North London derby just suggests there's going to be lots of yellow cards. There always is, and you just don't want to risk getting one in that game and missing the Man United match. So we'll wait and see, but that's certainly something to keep an eye on when Arsenal play Newcastle tomorrow night, is that yellow card situation. Saka and Saliba now just 1 game away from a ban. To be fair to Saliba, he's been 1 game away from a ban for a long time, and he's managed to avoid it so far, picking up that 5th yellow card. So hopefully he can go on for a little bit longer. But I can't believe Saka's got 4 yellow cards. It's mad. I mean, the guy barely makes a tackle when he's got 4 yellow cards. It's just ridiculous considering the treatment that he gets dished out week in, week out. But what are you going to do? It's the nature of referees in this league, I'm afraid. Okay, so transfer-wise, and I have to admit, I've literally just had to re-record the ending to this video, because the one I had recorded, I was saying I wasn't sure. I'd heard reports that Mudryk, a second bid had gone in, but I wasn't able to confirm them yet. But now, sod's law, as soon as I start to upload the video, I can now confirm them. So the latest on Mudryk, as I understand it, is a second offer has been made during the negotiations between Arsenal and Shakhtar. I don't think an official response has been given yet to that second offer, which is, of course, improved offer on the initial one, which was around the £55 million mark, including the add-ons. I don't think this is anywhere near the sort of 90 million that Shakhtar, of course, have very publicly been sort of demanding and valuing the player for. But we will see what happens with it. I mean, Arsenal were never going to go to 90 million anyway, so we'll wait and see. I think it's all about the sort of structure of the deal. And I think this one is nowhere near, of course, like I said, it's very far away from Shakhtar's public valuation of him, but I think Arsenal are certainly hopeful that some sort of compromise can be reached as these talks progress. You know, they've been in talk. This isn't just a case of just throwing in a random bid. They've been talking to Shakhtar for a long, long time about potential structures of the deal. You know, what could be paid up front, what could be deemed acceptable, and this is how negotiations go. Especially if you're a club like Arsenal who don't have, you know, unlimited transfer funds. You can't just throw money to get a player in. You've got to try and get the best possible deal, of course. And so we'll see how it goes. As far as I'm aware, I don't think an official response has come back from this second bid yet, but that second bid has been made during the negotiations for Mudryk between Arsenal and Shakhtar. I think it's probably, and again, this is a bit of a, I don't know this for sure, and this is literally just happened as I've been recording this video, so it's still a little bit sketchy in terms of the full details. I'll try and find out more as it goes on, but I think it's probably going to be, you're probably looking at about, I don't know, all in, including add-ons, I imagine Arsenal probably gone around sort of 65, something like that, million mark to try and tempt them into doing business. And it all depends on exactly what they're offering up front and everything like that to see if it's all deemed accessible. So we'll wait and see. Look, it's good in a way. It shows Arsenal are absolutely still trying to get Mudryk done, and we'll wait and see. But that is the very latest when it comes to Arsenal and Mudryk. A second offer has been made, and we wait to see exactly how Shakhtar responds to it. There's been lots of other talk today about João Felix, of course, another player who's on the agenda this month. Really good piece looking at the situation in the Athletic today with like David Ornstein, James, obviously Gunner Blog, and a couple others sort of chipping in on it. And the sort of numbers when you look at that are pretty mad. I think it's about 21 million euros. They were saying to potentially, that's what Atletico are looking at to get to sort of give Felix to anyone on loan until the end of the season. I don't know, those numbers are pretty big to basically borrow a player for 5 months. 21, can you? I mean, I've seen people saying, "Oh, just pay it, that's great. He'll win us the Premier League." I don't know if that's true that he'd win Arsenal the Premier League. You've got to come in, you've got to acclimatise to a new league. Can he do that and hit the ground running? I mean, it's all hypothetical. No one knows until he's actually here, obviously. But it could be a bit of a big ask for him to come in and make such an immediate impact. It just seems like a lot of money to me. I think you're probably going to Atletico are going to have to probably come down quite a bit as the month goes on if they're going to tempt anyone into doing business for Felix on that sort of money. He's a good player, no doubt about it. But again, I just think you've got to take into account he's never played in the Premier League before, that sort of thing. If you're just going to loan him for 5 months or till the end of the season, you really pay 21 million. That's including his wages in that. I mean, who knows, if it comes in and he wins you the Premier League title, then it would be absolutely money well spent. But again, that's just all hypothetical because no one knows until he actually gets it. But let me know what you guys think. I'm sure plenty of you will be saying, yep, just sign him, get him in. Let me know what you think. Would 21 million euros for João Felix until the end of the season, is that good money? Let me know in the comments below. Anything else you've agreed with, disagreed with in this video, please do hit me up. Appreciate your response and all your support as always on this channel. I'll be at Arsenal versus Newcastle tomorrow, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Until then, have a very good day and I'll speak to you soon.